Hello, guys. Welcome to my new 2022 gubernatorial prediction for the middle of October. I'm going to be doing probably multiple videos of these as the election comes closer to November. So let's get right into it. This is pretty much with an influx of new polls I have seen. So the race has changed in a couple of states, and we're going to be walking through which states' margins have changed. So, yeah. We just fill in these safe states here. New York is not going to be a likely state. I mean, if you put that rating as likely, I do think you're a little bit biased towards Republicans, but it depends on your scales. For my scales, it's over 10% as safe, but if your scale is like 15% or maybe 13%, maybe it could be likely, but I think it's going to be a solid Democratic state according to my scales. Um, Vermont, New Hampshire as well, easily 10% victories for the Republicans here. I think we can get on with the map now. First state I'm going to be doing South Dakota. There was a poll here that showed the Republican governor is not doing that decent in the state of South Dakota, and they had a competitive gubernatorial election back in 2018. Kristi Noem, I think the Republican governor is. She isn't that favorable in polls too. So I do believe this race might be, well, is in the likely column. I still think she'll pull off a victory by 8 to 9% though. Oklahoma, pretty much the same thing. I mean, sooner polls are off by like 10% usually, but they're showing the Democrat ahead. So I do think this state will be within the likely column, but I think the Republican will still win here by 8 to 9%, similar to South Dakota. Texas. There's been a poll that shows Greg Abbott is only had a 4% lead, a Marist poll in Texas. So I still think Abbott's going to win by like 5% around there, 5 or 6. I still think he'll perform here just because Beto O'Rourke shifted too much to the left in the Democratic primary. If he didn't do that, this race could be to lean, but it's going to be likely. Rhode Island, as you this day, is a likely race. I mean, the Democrat isn't leading by a ton. He's still leading by double digits. However, he's not leading over 50% of the polls I've seen. In Connecticut, the Democrats easily going to win by over 10% here. Most of the polls have him above that margin considerably. In Colorado, this is easily going to be a safe state. I don't think it's that competitive. I think the Democrats here will win by over 10%. Because Jared Polis is a pretty strong incumbent governor, and the Republican candidate here is a bit of a joke. Really has no shot. In the state of Maine, again, I don't think this is going to be that competitive of a race. The Democratic governor here has decent approvals, and she's leading sometimes by over 10%, but I'm assuming it'll be in the likely column. Same with Shapiro as well. I see this race as going into the likely column. I think Shapiro is going to win here by like 8 to 9%. Maybe by 7%. It could go down to that much because sometimes polls in PA favor the Democrats a bit too much and they overestimate them, like in the 2020 election. In Minnesota, again, the Republican candidate here is very weak, and it's an incumbent Democrat, and it's Minnesota, so. And the Republican here is an anti-vaxxer, which really doesn't help his case. The next few states. Let's head to the south. Florida and Georgia easily going to be likely states for both candidates here. Brian Kemp sometimes is leading as much as 10% in certain polls. And DeSantis, I think he's going to pull off a high single-digit win, probably like 8 to 9 points, while Brian Kemp will win by about 8 to 7% against Stacey Abrams, because she really shot herself in the foot with just trying to be Biden's vice president, refusing to concede in 2018's governor election. In New Mexico, I don't think this race is going to be a lean race. I think the Democrat here is going to win by 6 to 7% against her Republican opponent. I mean, the Republican opponent lost before in the 2020 Senate election by only 6%. So it's possible it could go to lean, but I think the Democrat's going to win here by a likely margin. Let's see, which state should we do next? I'd say Arizona. I think the Republicans here, I really think that Katie Hobbs really shot herself in the foot by not doing debates here. That's why she's probably going to lose this governor race. If she decided to do debates, she would have had a chance at winning the state, but I think the Republicans are going to pull off a victory here. In the state of Nevada, Lombardo is actually outperforming Laxalt in Nevada, so I think Lombardo's probably going to win by a lean margin of victory, and most polls are showing it. So this is a change from my previous governor prediction this October, which I had the Democrats winning the state. I think the Republicans are going to win the state by a lean margin now. Next state. Michigan, I mean, there was a poll that showed it within 6%, and Trafalgar said it was within 6%. So I'm going to go with Trafalgar in this one. I think Whitmer will win by about 6. Excuse me. I think she's going to win by about 6% in this state just by going by what Trafalgar said. They're pretty good when it comes to polls in Michigan, so I'm going to be putting this in the likely column. And these last few states here. Kansas and Oregon have a bit of a same problem. They have independent candidates running, which in Oregon, the independent candidate's taking votes away from the Democrat, and in Kansas, the independent candidate's taking away votes from the Republican. So in Kansas, just because of that third-party candidate, I think the incumbent Democrat really has a chance here. She has not that terrible approval ratings, and she's been leading in some polls, and the independent candidate who's taking away votes from the Republicans, he's at about 3%, so that's a decent amount of support going away from the Republican candidate in this state, which I think gives the Democrat the edge here. Now in Oregon. That's an interesting one. Republican here is currently leading in the polls by a tilt margin, and it really looks like the independent candidate's going to siphon enough votes away from the Democrat to give the Republicans to win in Oregon by a tilt margin, under 1%. There's still some undecideds, so they could shift to the Democrats, but for now I'm going to be putting it in the Republican column. In the state of Wisconsin, the MU Law poll actually shows the Democrat here pretty much statistically tied and with a little bit of a lead. And most polls here show it as a tied race, but you got to give some incumbency advantage to Tony Evers here, so he might have a shot here. But I still think that with the amount of undecided voters in the state of Wisconsin, that they're probably going to swing Republican, and the state will be tilt Republican. So that's my updated 2022 gubernatorial prediction or governor prediction. Let me know what you think of this prediction in the comments below. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.